Hello. So we are live. Welcome, everyone. This is my journey to becoming. This is a new series that I'm starting on a biweekly basis where I am welcoming an amazing professional for them to share their journey of becoming a leader in their industry. And today I have Harleny Vasquez with me. Really excited. So, social worker, career coach, podcaster, public speaker, clinical recruiter, published author. Like the accomplishments are just too many, right? Is there anything else I forgot?
No, you said it all. It's funny. I forget the things that I do until people call it out. And I'm like, oh my God, I do all those things.
That's amazing. I'm so glad to be able to talk to you. And yes, we were just saying it's like we've known each other forever because we've been reading each other's LinkedIn posts for years. But it's awesome to just, sit down and have a chat with you. So thanks for agreeing to do this.
Of
How's your
course.
day been?
It's going good besides allergies, taking my life away. I'm doing very well. And I'm so excited to get an opportunity to share my story and, just to share any insights that can help anyone who may be trying to figure out their next steps at this time in their career.
Awesome. A couple of people joining. Hello, Jackson. Thanks for joining live. Let us know if you're joining live or you're watching the replay. You can just drop a comment and let us know when you are joining. And really, for the conversation today, it's to find out more about your journey, about your path, ultimately to inspire others who want to follow a similar path or to get advice as to how they can pursue their path to become a social worker as well. So I want to know, just like growing up, was the plan always to be a social worker? I know, some people, it's like they always knew, like from when they were young, that this is what they were going to do. Was that the case for you?
So actually, it wasn't because
Okay.
people always say like, "How do you just wake up one day and say I want to be a social worker?" But
True.
I get asked this question many times. So when it comes to my particular journey, when I was younger, I actually wanted to be a flight attendant. I wanted to
Ooh.
travel, and as I was because think about it, those are the things that we will see on the screen when we watch TV. When it
Yeah.
comes to different careers and just living the life and for me, I always knew that I did wanted to, help others. I was someone who was raised by a single mother. I grew up in low income. There were definitely lack of resources in the community. So I always knew, hey Joelle, thank you for joining. I always knew that like, I wanted to give back. I wanted to serve. Besides thinking about flight attendant, I was like, maybe I'll be a doctor, maybe I'll be, a psychologist, a nurse. Like I always knew, like I always found the brain to be very fascinating,
Yeah.
as well as hospital. Like unfortunately, growing up, I was always around the hospital system, right? Due to
Mhm.
family members having to go in and out the hospital. So that's something that from very young I was always exposed to. So it was something that kind of gave me a little bit of awareness into the helping profession overall. But it wasn't until maybe I don't know, it was more than 10 years ago, right before when I started going to college. I was like,
Okay.
like I mentioned, I found the brain to be very fascinating. So I was like, let me just study psychology. Let me learn about, the lifespan and just really learning people's life stages. But it wasn't until I graduated with my undergrad, with my bachelor's degree in psychology, that I started getting exposure into the field. I started working with youth who had, mental health diagnosis in the community. And once that kind of got me started into really learning more about social services and working within mental health, I then pivoted into work, not pivoted, but kind of transitioned into working with at-risk youth in the shelter system. And that is really where it opened my doors. And when it opened my eyes when it comes to social work, and I was like, social work it is. So that I know, like,
Mhm.
it really starts with kind of having that idea of like, maybe I should do this or maybe I should do that. But I often tell people and clients, like, sometimes you have to get exposed and see what calls you, what drives you, and then really identify your interests based on that.
I love it. And it's really important. And often, we tell this to kids, but just having that opportunity to be exposed to different professions, it really helps you to make better career decisions in the long run. And we always ask kids the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? But really, it's not really about what they're going to be, but really what they're going to do, right? And as you have shown in your path, that you can do multiple things. You started off in one path, and life and your journey kind of led you through other places. But in all the different parts of your story, I think one thing that really resonates with me is that the focus has always been people, and I think that's the amazing thing about it. So you mentioned your undergrad is in psychology. Tell us a little bit more about like the training. Like if someone's here, they're still young, trying to determine what they're going to study, or maybe they're ready to make a career change to become a social worker, and they're trying to figure out, what degree do I need? What certifications? And where you're in New Jersey, right?
Correct. Now in New Jersey, but born
Okay.
and raised New York City.
Okay, fair enough. So just keeping that in mind as well, that depending on where you are in the world, I'm in Canada, I'm in Ottawa, the system can be very different as well. So just keep that in mind. But tell us about your own path.
Absolutely. So one thing I would definitely say is that back then I did not know that bachelor's of social work existed, right? And even
Mm,
though I didn't know early on what I wanted to do, for those who don't know, if you get your bachelor's degree in psychology, you have to pursue, another degree or even go get a doctorate as well, because there's not much you can do with a bachelor's degree in psychology. It's really the foundations. So I already knew pursuing that particular degree in psychology at that time. I also forgot to mention, before I decided that I wanted to be a social work, the different paths that I was exploring at that time, maybe it was school counseling or mental health counseling, or even school psychologist at that time, because again, it was still part of the helping profession. But then once I got that exposure, then I decided social work. But once I decided that I wanted to be a social worker, then I had to go to graduate school and get my master's degree in social work.
okay.
Obviously, regardless of what state you are, obviously Canada probably will be definitely the same, but you need your master's degree
Yeah.
in social work. Even though you can get your bachelor's degree in social work as well and get licensed, it really depends your state.
Okay.
When it comes to the type of work that you're able to do, right? Sometimes there'll be titles of like an associate license or junior license or a limited permit. Like there's just so many things. So always do your research based on your state, right? And your country, right? Because it's always going to vary, right? Based on the requirements. But for me, your master's degree in social work is generally 2 years if you do it on a full-time basis. For me, I was still working full-time. So I went to Fordham University and I was part of their 3-year part-time program
Oh,
because I had to work full-time.
yeah.
So once I got my master's degree in social work, and I know we're going to get into a little bit when it comes to different career paths, but at least for me, I'm also a licensed social worker, meaning that I took a 4-hour exam,
Oh,
right? Certified for New York, right? Board certified as a licensed social worker. It's kind of like if nurses had to take their exam, or, well, obviously doctors are a different exam, but it's really the same, like a board exam, certified as well. So you definitely need higher education and graduate education as well to become, especially a licensed social worker.
okay, amazing. We have Joelle here showing you some love, and we will take maybe one or two questions at the end. So we'll get to your question, Joelle. But in the meantime, I think it's thanks for giving the breakdown, because I often like will see even on LinkedIn social workers, and they often have all these letters after their names, and I'm like, how many certifications do they have to do to become a social worker? It's quite an intensive and rigorous process. So it's really, really interesting. Can you think of any impactful or memorable experience that you had when you were working as a social worker?
Well, I say it goes back to the kiddos. I mean, I had an extensive amount of time working with children and families, whether they were in foster care, the shelter system, right, and community-based program, and really focusing on, helping them navigate their life, right? Whether they were homeless, whether they were in foster care, right? Whether they were navigating being able to be, let's say, adopted, right? Like I remember being a caseworker and having to go to court to testify. So I
Mm,
think that is one of those, even though it was not an easy journey, but at the end of the day, it was making an impact, right? Really was working along with those families who really, really needed that assistance and really needing that helping hands, because it's a field that you don't have the right supervision, as you know, it can feel very draining. It can feel, you
yeah.
can get burned out, especially that there's already a lot of noise about the social work profession for everyone to know about what we could do, what we shouldn't do, and just we
Mm,
get a really bad rep, like, oh, you're a social worker, oh,
yeah.
you take kids away. Like, no,
Exactly.
that's not what we do, and it's just more along the lines of obviously why I'm trying to change this narrative, right? And to really help others recognize that we can truly do it all if we give ourselves the permission, and recognize our worth and our strengths, and be able to work in any area of practice, even non-traditional roles. But even if you was to do a quick Google search, by the way, and you look up social work, then you'll get the traditional jobs, like I said, social services and shelter systems. So it's very important to don't let that noise get to you and do
Yeah.
your own research.
I love that you're changing the narrative because honestly, that's what I think of when I
Hey,
think
I don't blame
social
you. I mean, I get that asked all the time. Even if I'll go to the doctor and they're like, "Oh, you're a social work." Oh, that's so hard. I'm like, I
exactly.
want to tell you something right now, but I'm just gonna I mean, I advocate, but there's just some people that are stuck in their ways, and it's just not worth, that
Interesting.
battle.
My very first professional, I'll say, job was with it was a city office. It was like a welfare office, and like the caseload that the social workers had, and I think it goes to Joelle's question, but it was so much. Like at the time I was more just answering the phone and supporting them, but the amount of work they did, that's also when I gained a lot of respect for them, because the people that were coming in were dealing with real life situations and they needed help. And to be able to talk to that social worker who would then almost play so many roles, not just helping them to be able to figure out the life situation, but helping them with their finances, helping them to be able to secure employment. Like there's so much to it that that's where I was really like, okay, they do have bad reputation, but they do some amazing work. So it's quite the profession. But now you're a career coach for social workers, so that's really interesting. What type of career advice do you tend to give people? Obviously, you're not spilling all the tea here. They can go and find out more about you and your career services for that. But just general advice for someone that I'm sure there's certain things, I'm in the career field as well, and obviously there's certain things that you tend to give as advice that help people along the way, but this is a specific emphasis on social workers. So what's the career, like what are the career prospects right now? What number one advice would you give someone who's looking to get into that field?
Absolutely. I mean, I first want to start with the mindset piece, in the sense of, like I mentioned, there's already a lot of noise about like what social workers actually can do in this field. And for anyone who's currently on the fence or even thinking about it, you first have to wipe out that noise, because
Hmm.
I'm here to tell you that social work is what you make it, and social work school does an amazing job in teaching you those foundations on how to build rapport and how to build relationships, and reach out to stakeholders and build partnership, like all of those things, right? Regardless of the area of practice that you're in. So I'm here to tell you that it like I mean, I'm going to be biased here, but social work is the best degree ever, because you can literally do it all. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, like, I'm also in recruiting, I'm a career coach, and I'm able to always be a social worker at heart, right? Like I always
Yeah.
meet the client where they're at. I'm always advocating for them. I'm always looking for the best interest. And even if you don't want to I want you all to know that social work is not only being a therapist in direct practice. You can make change on a policy level. You can work in government. You
Mhm.
can, create the change that you want to see. It's not only talking to people and counseling and, working with people who have, mental health diagnosis, people tend to think that, or taking someone's kids away, right? So
Yeah,
really about like creating that narrative for yourself. But if you're currently in that fence, recognize your skills, recognize your areas of expertise, and ask yourself, why social work, right? Like, what can I do and utilize with this social work degree? And obviously, I'm here to tell you that you can even secure non-traditional roles. As I mentioned, I'm trying to change the game, and this is what I do on a consistent basis. But it first starts with your mindset, because if you don't believe in yourself, or you believe in someone else's view of what you can do, then you're not going to be, that degree's going to go to waste. I mean,
I love that. Yeah, very, very valuable advice. And you are a published co-author now. So congratulations to you. That's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And from what I was reading about the chapter, it's about healing, it's about knowing your self-worth, recognizing it, and also dealing with internalized oppression. And you share also your path as a social worker. But can you tell us a little bit more about that process that you went through? Because now you're talking, you gave like your advice that it's more about the mindset. But from what I'm understanding of what you've explained in your book, also it's that same mindset piece to really recognize who you are and recognize your worth. So how was that journey for you? How were you able to go through that process?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, what I'm about to say, everyone's journey is different. And what I'm going
Mhm.
to share is more along the lines of my journey in regards to self awareness. And of course, in regards to still in my healing journey. So for me, again, I'm also forgot to mention, I also am a first gen college grad. So it's really along the lines of, for me, I was always chasing the next, thing, whether it was title, whether it was promotion, and I was always chasing, the next high, as they say.
Yes.
So for a long time, I was always on the go, and I never was really alone with my own thoughts, right?
Mm,
But in the sense of like, I was always my biggest critic, like we all are, right? And really struggling, with like self esteem, even at a younger age. But because I was always on the go, I never really gave myself the time to reflect until when I started my business year of mine. I started to recognize, like, wait a minute, like, I'll have moments where things are really quiet and I couldn't really be with my own thoughts or anything like that. So for me, it really, really opened my eyes when it came to like, you know what, like I'm not okay. Like I need to be able to like seek help and, seek a therapist and really, share my story, because it's still a healing journey and still in this road to like loving myself. I need to be able to fill my own cup before I can serve others. So
yeah.
it's really along the lines of self-awareness, by finding that community, to someone that you can talk to as well, but also recognizing that you're not alone, that you're an asset, that you matter. And it's really about those exposures that, sometimes make us stronger. Exposure, the right exposures, not bad exposure.
True, right? Exposure. That makes a big difference. I love your company name, your Evolve Mind. It's so powerful. Very, very powerful. I love it. Let's go to Joelle's question because we kind of touched on it a little bit, but they were asking here about best practice that you personally take to not feel so overwhelmed with handling extreme social cases on a daily basis with clients. Do you have any thoughts on that or any advice?
Absolutely. So in the mental health profession, or even social work profession, the term compassion fatigue gets thrown a lot. And that's basically that, you care so much that you want
Mhm.
it more than the client, and that it just breaks you apart. I used to feel that all the time when I was working in foster care. I'll be like, this is it. You're gonna get, stay in recovery, whatever it was. And then when it didn't happen, it would crush me more than
Yeah,
it did the client. So I think it's very important to, number one, become aware of the things that you do have control over versus the things that you don't. Even though you may get that feeling like I'm gonna change the world and I'm not trying to get everyone's light, but only so much you can do, right? And you need to protect yourself. You need to protect your mental health. You need to set boundaries and really recognize, okay, if I have this caseload, this is my schedule. Where's the support that I'm going to receive, whether it's supervision or consultation calls with someone else on the team? Like, really, if you don't have resources, find those resources, find that community, and of course set boundaries, right? Like you're allowed to say, like, I can't take on a new case right now, or I think it'll be best if I can maybe transfer this client to this other colleague based on the following reasons. Like, recognize your strengths, but also recognize your limits as well. We all have boundaries. We all have, certain, we can set expectations for ourselves.
Yeah.
Wanted to mention that too.
Yeah. That's a big one. That's a big one because you feel connected to people. You're seeing them, you're seeing their struggle, and you kind of attach yourself to their story. So it's very interesting, and I hope that helps you, Joelle, for your own situation.
And
And
one thing I wanted to say is
yeah,
it goes back to supervision. Like, you need to, when you're dealing with, tough situations, clients and like, people in the community, you need to have good supervision to be able to bounce ideas off and vent and really,
mm,
have an opportunity to process and reflect. And sometimes, because at the end of the day, like you mentioned, we're human, we are allowed to feel, right?
mhm.
Their families, their lives that we're working with, right? Impacting, right? So it's really about also giving yourself some grace.
Yeah. So often social workers work as a team. Like even though they may serve the client individually, they do have someone they're reporting to that can provide them with that support, or as you were mentioning, to kind of if you want to give the load or share the load with another colleague. Is that does that tend to be the structure?
Not everywhere. I was
Not
kind of
everywhere.
saying like
Oh,
on a dreaming level, because, and
okay.
I'm not saying dreaming, I'm just saying like that should be the norm for anyone,
Right.
definitely. Like, and this is why it's so important, and something you also often talk about with your clients is assess the company culture, really assess when
Mhm.
you're interviewing, right? How you're onboarding. Because if you feel you don't have the support early on, that you're not going to feel supported. You're going to get stressed out and burned out as an employee. So always pay attention to all of those red flags.
Awesome. Joelle says, thank you. Great gems dropped, and I completely agree. So, tell me a little bit more now about your career coaching, about your evolved mind. I know you're offering career coaching sessions. Tell us a little bit more about that and how people can connect with you.
Absolutely. So, Your Evolve Mind is a career consulting firm dedicated to supporting social workers and helping them elevate and uplift themselves utilizing their social work degree. And I also focus on emerging professionals. So, students, I work a lot with universities and helping them build their personal brand and market themselves. So, if you currently identify as a social worker or emerging professional, I'm currently offering a 60-minute career coaching sessions where you can go to my page and book a call. And during the 6-minute session, we can focus on job search strategy or LinkedIn optimization, resume and cover letter reviews, even mock interview sessions, or really helping you create your roadmap to creating the career that you desire. So definitely reach out to me if you have any questions. Obviously, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm here to support you all.
Amazing. And I will tag you, obviously, in the post so that people can connect with you directly and take advantage of the services that you're offering. I've been creeping you on social media and Google searching you.
Listen, we all got to support each other while everyone's thriving, Gotta get.
Exactly. But I was so amazed by the wonderful things that you're doing and the impact that you're having on various organizations and on people. So, congratulations for all your success. It was amazing talking to you today. And thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I know that there are social workers or aspiring social workers out there who have received a lot of knowledge from what you shared today.
Thank you so much. And keep on shining. You're killing it as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care. Bye.